Okay, take two. Let's see if this works. All right, welcome to the inaugural supplemental fireside chat to the Car Diary with Hobby Thompson. That's the new podcast, streaming on maybe all major platforms. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure that out. I am your host, Denny Cards. My podcast alias is Hobby Thompson because I am navigating the ins and outs of this hobby space that we so love. So, okay, I know this is your first podcast, but don't be nervous. Um, I'm not saying that to you, Dan. I'm saying that to myself. I need to pump myself up. Um, Today we have my very first guest. It is Dan, the great curator. I asked him for a bio so I could read it, but he said no, just wing it. Just speak from your personal experience or speak from your heart.
Google me. That's what I said. Google me.
Google me. I actually asked ChatGPT who you are, and they didn't know, or he or she. I don't know. Um, but yeah, Dan. So I'm gonna just do a really quick bio like this. I am gonna allow you to like say hello and introduce yourself, but I'm gonna just say a word, and you tell me if that describes you. Okay?
Sure.
Collector,
Yes.
curator,
Yes.
buyer,
Yes.
seller,
Yes.
trader. Not like Benedict Arnold, but like
Yes.
Trader, Trader Joe's. Okay.
Yes.
Father,
Yes.
husband,
Yes.
friend,
Yes.
pumper,
Of things I like? Yes.
and dumper.
Of things I don't like? Yes.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to I cannot believe that I have you on as my first guest. What people don't understand is that the pump and dump thing at the end that I put in there was a joke. You didn't know that. Like I told you that I was going to ask you some questions. I did not put that in my initial show notes for you. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. But here's the thing: Google you, watch your content. I love your content. You are very polarizing. There are people who love you and hate you. And I got to say that I've seen the comments and I've seen the people come after you. And you are definitely polarizing. But that's what I love about you, actually. And when I had like no following, no presence, I don't know, just reached out to you and you actually gave me the time of day and I actually have learned a lot from you and other people and I've gotten to know you and I continue to be impressed by the amount of time and energy and resources that you give me. You've seen me grow in the short amount of time that I've been a creator, and I really just got to thank you. I think this is the side that people don't see about or with you is like people can say, "Oh, he does this, he does that." You're definitely sarcastic. You're definitely funny, but you are human. Like you are a fully rounded, and I'm not talking about just your face, but like you're fully rounded individual. So you are a father, you are a husband, you're a friend. You have a podcast between two slaps. I'm plugging it for you. You're having a drink, so am I. Cheers. Um, but I just wanted to, I guess that's my intro for you is you are a fully fleshed out individual human being in the hobby just like I am, and thank you so much for coming on the show. And so I'll let you speak a little bit and then I have my first question for you. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate that. I feel like that should have been your closing statement. That would have been the perfect way to end this podcast. But
Well, thank you for
I,
listening, everyone. It has been a
yeah,
great time with
that's the
Dan.
interview. I will say this, I do appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to um, be a guest on your podcast, and I'm actually I feel privileged to be the first guest on your podcast. But I feel like this is unique because I get asked to go on a lot of people's different shows, and I can honestly say most of those people I don't know them at all. I just know maybe of them from their podcast, or I don't even know them at all, and I just want to do them a solid. But I actually know you well enough now to see your progression in the hobby in terms of you making content, and I wanted to be on your show, and I wanted to be one of the first guests on your show to talk about some interesting topics, some maybe some controversial topics, polarizing topics. But I feel like you are in the unique position where you actually know me outside of the hobby. We've spoken on the phone before. You've helped me out on my trip to Asia. We text regularly, so I feel like a side of me that a lot of people don't know, and because of that, you can flesh out some better answers to some of these questions. So I'm excited to get into this and discuss all these hard hitting issues, share my knowledge with you, and maybe have some laughs.
Awesome. I love to hear it. So, as a first time podcast interviewer or host, I've put a lot of pressure on myself for my very first question that I ask. I mean, it's just like I'm building up too much pressure on myself, but it's such an important question, and so I really don't want to miss it. I don't want to blow it. So here it goes. My first question ever as a podcast host is, Dan, the great curator. Are we related?
Well, most people probably think that, but I would actually probably maybe who knows.
Right. So
Yeah,
okay. So
not not,
you are
not immediately, but who knows, maybe.
so I am Korean American. You are Vietnamese American, correct?
Yes.
You actually did go to my home country. I was actually born in Korea. So you went to South Korea earlier this year in 2023, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was enough for me to just be like, "Oh, yay, like go visit and have a great time." And I was there last year. I was there during winter break of 2022. So I mean, just another way for you to follow my footsteps. Thank you, Dan.
If
Um
I know this was supposed to be a joke, but if I can just touch on this real quick, and then this might be a great segue into the first discussion point
sure.
of this. No, we're not related, but we do look like each other, and that may sound kind of funny to say, but I will say this: like in the hobby, it's um, it's comforting to see representation
Mhm.
that you don't normally see. I mean, honestly, like if I'm going to be very uh, candid about this, it's dominated by majority people that not like us. So whenever I see
Just
another
say white
person,
people.
whenever I see another person make content or at shows or just be actively involved in the hobby as much as I am, I think that's really cool, and I want to
Mhm.
be part of that because I know from my own experience, from all the content that I put out there, you know, this is true, guys. I have a lot of people, a lot of Asian people reach out to me and tell me that they appreciate seeing my content, seeing my face out there, and it makes them feel good because for whatever reason. So I like that. I like that, and I would encourage more of that.
No, that's great. That's a really good point. Yes, I vacillate between being sarcastic and jokey and being serious. I think, that's being human. I mean, that's just different sides of us. And I really appreciate kind of like I don't know if I called you a trailblazer or whatever, but like for you to represent this side of the hobby, I really do appreciate it. You and other people, when I see your content and it inspires me. It really does. And uh I said something really cheesy, so I'll just say something a backhanded compliment. We do kind of look at each other, but I do have better hair. I have more hair. I have better
Mhm.
hair. For the people who are listening to this on audio, just take my word for it.
Yeah, but
But
I got
I
better cheekbones
no, yeah, okay, thank you. I'll give you
and
that.
dimples.
Okay, well, let's stop there.
And no
I'm gonna
glasses.
edit that part out. But no, I have my family. There's male pattern baldness that runs through it, and I am trying to hold on to dear life for my hair. And so I started the podcast wearing my Vancouver Grizzlies hat,
Mhm.
and I took it off
Yeah,
just because you know what?
Koreans. I think stereotypically Koreans do have great hair.
Well, so that's a great segue to why you're here because I have yet to record my chapter one or second episode about buying, selling, and trading.
Mhm.
But buying, trading, and selling, if you said it that way, which is a little bit awkward because it's always buy, sell, trade. BTS, Bangtan, Sung, the beyond. They have so many ways to call themselves, but buying, trading, selling, BTS.
Yes.
Behind the
Or between two
scenes,
slabs.
I
Podcast every Tuesday.
you
Live
beat
guys.
to it. I was just about to say that. Plug it. What day? What day? And where? And what platforms? Let's just get it out of the way now.
If you guys didn't know, I do have a podcast. We've been going on almost pretty much a year now. I do with my partner, Mer World Cards. It's called Between Two Slabs. It is the best podcast, the best hobby podcast out there that nobody listens to. It's every Tuesday at 6 p.m. live. Usually we stick to that schedule. Sometimes we skip it a week or two, but that's where you can find us. Always on YouTube and also on every audio platform, iTunes, Sirius, and all that stuff.
So that's 6 p.m.
Pacific Standard Time.
Right.
6
Okay.
p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And usually it's about 1 to 2 hour podcast. And we just talk about news. We talk about what's on our mind, what a segment, which I call What Bends My Corner, which is just things that piss me off. Mail days, we take comments. It's really engaging with the audience. We're just bullshitting for a couple hours about hobby stuff, but it's a lot of fun. So please join us.
Okay, so two things. One, 2 hours sounds like way too long, but I have been in the live.
Flies
It
by.
is
It's flies by.
I
It's very interesting conversation. I mean, it seems like 20 minutes. I've had people request that we go longer, but unfortunately, we don't
well
have that time in our
that
schedule.
I think that is your opinion, but okay. So the second thing I wanted to say was I don't think you read my show notes and my email, but I am trying to keep
Glanced
this
over it.
family friendly. Yeah, you didn't read it. I wrote it for myself, I guess.
It was really
I'm
long. I mean, I'm just saying, I was asking for like an itemized list of questions, and you sent me like a 3-page, short story.
I did. I did. Hey, well, okay, we are gonna get to buying, selling, train, but have you ever tried to look for a recipe online and you're just you're just like, give me the recipe, and then it's like that first few paragraphs about like when I was in grandma's kitchen, Nana would bake
Yeah.
me the best cookies and the pasta she made was the best. I'm like, just give me the recipe. Just give me the recipe. So I guess I'll have to keep that in mind for my future guests. Maybe they'll actually be literate and on time too.
Short,
Should
short
we
and
tell people? Should we tell people how late this is starting?
We
No.
could. I mean, we could. We could
Okay.
also tell people about how I take time out of my busy schedule to do this for you. We could.
Yes, that is true. So all I will say is it is clear that you're the talent because I had to wait on you,
Yeah,
and I do have a strong feeling that you will be worth the wait. But let's stop the
that's what she said.
crazy banter and let's get into it. So
Okay.
hopefully people have gotten a well-rounded idea of how this conversation is going to go. I think you and I beforehand we said let's do real talk.
Yes.
Um, but this I have you on to be the expert, the person that I want to learn from about buying, trading, and selling. And in regard to that, I know that you have not listened to anything that I've output yet, even though I asked you if you wanted to. But yours, your
Don't have
time
the
is
time.
very,
Sorry.
yep,
Sorry.
sorry,
But
yep,
that's an interesting point. If we can just segue for a second. To
yeah,
be honest, I don't consume a lot of hobby content because
mm,
I'm so busy making my own. I just
mm,
have little bits that I watch here or there, or unless somebody
mm-hmm,
sends something to me. But honestly, I'm just so busy doing my own content that I don't have time to
mm.
really keep up with everything out there. So when people say, "Oh, did you hear about this guy talking about you or this and that?" and I was like, honestly, no, because I'm just focused on doing my own thing.
Okay. So speaking of your own thing, let's get right to the B part of BTS buying. That is the way you entered into the hobby, right? Just in order to curate, in order to collect, you have to buy, right? So if you could kind of like start from like I guess your origin story of just how you got into the hobby in terms of like what did you look for when you were buying? Um, sorry, it's bad extended question, but just to add on to what I just said, I wanted to explain that when I got into your archives, your older YouTube stuff, you were actually, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you were actually buying, selling, and trading sports cards. I mean, you're known right now for pop culture and non-sports cards, but you were like behind a desk, you look professional, you were
Mhm.
talking about Kobe cards, and I'm like, man, this does not look like anything like the current great curator who I know.
And that content still holds up, guys. It's available on YouTube. Check it out. It'll help you out. Okay. Yeah, so originally, okay, so real quick, I'll give you the 60-second elevator pitch of my history here, my origin story. I got back in the hobby pre-pandemic era, just before things shut down. I did it because at the time I was collecting a lot of toys. I've always been a collector my whole life, but I kind of been in and out of it. And in 2019, I was just collecting a lot of toys, and my wife said, "You know what? This stuff takes up a lot of room. Is it worth any money? Blah blah blah. Can you maybe buy something that is investable, like artwork?" She was thinking like classic art, Rembrandt, Picasso's, things like that, right? But in my mind, I was thinking comic books or other type of artwork, pop culture art. So I said, "Oh, okay, well, let me look into that. That's a great point." She just gave me the green light to spend money. So I started doing research, and I was amazed at how the hobby market had changed from when you just bought things because they were cool, but essentially they were just like a waste of money, to now you buy things and they're worth money and you can actually flip it or fund your hobby doing that. And that led me down this snowball path where I went from collecting comic books to sports cards and toys and all that stuff. And as I got back into the card hobby specifically, I learned that you had to have like an Instagram to really communicate and be part of the hobby and engage people and do deals basically. So I started an Instagram page. I was doing that for a while, just posting cards and things like that, going to shows, and then a couple like a year into it, the market started to go down, and as the market went down, people started to freak out and complain and make all this content about why the hobby sucks and how we should all sell our cars and things like that. And me, I come from, I've studied uh, investment strategy before all this. So I was kind of like, I kind of knew how to navigate market downturns and things like that.
Mm.
So to kind of like tell people to chill out, I started making content about it. And that's what you see in my early videos, about how to deal with market downturns and things like that. I started off on Instagram just making long posts, and then people told me to make videos. So I started to do that, and it just took off. And I gained a following essentially overnight from doing that, and people were very receptive towards it, and then people started to know me for that, and then I just kind of like went with it. I started doing more content, and after a while, my content kind of evolves, just like my collecting habits, from being educational to being more entertaining to being myself. And it's kind of evolved and morphed over the last 2.5 years or so, to the point where I am now, where I feel very comfortable with myself right now, very comfortable with my position in the
Mm.
hobby.
Mm.
I collect things that I love, I show off things that I love, and my content is what I would describe as like 90% entertainment, designed to just kind of make people laugh for a couple seconds of the day, and about 10% educational. And I try my best to set an example for people on how to conduct themselves in the hobby in terms of treating people, how to enjoy the hobby, but also how to, when people ask, how to profit in the hobby.
Mm. I really like that, but I feel like I've heard you say similar things in other podcasts where I'm like, I thought it was gonna be a real talk. But no,
Real
thank
talk,
you.
guys. It's just about the money.
Real talk.
I'm just
So
trying. I'm just trying to make dollar bills here.
no, I mean, I don't want to like plug other people's podcasts or whatever, but I did hear you on a recent podcast where you did kind of talk about how you are comfortable in your content, and I appreciate that. I think that's great. I'm still trying to get comfortable with my content, and I'm not gonna make this about myself. I do want to try to stick to the BTS of the reason why we're here. So
This real quick.
yeah.
This should be focused upon you. The guest, we are here to kind of highlight things and give our opinions as expert. But I think this is your podcast, and one of the reasons why I wanted to be a guest, the first guest on your podcast, is to kind of encourage you, because if
Mm.
you want to disclose this, I have been kind of encouraging you to take this path for quite a while now, and I think it'll be interesting to see from this first episode to however many episodes you have planned, to see your progression during that period of time. And I think you'll be very
Mm.
surprised, the same way I'm surprised at myself when I look back at those early videos to to where now essentially like I'm a TikTok dancer.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, yes, I will have to figure out how to navigate this. I literally just a few hours before starting this recording with you, I did finally publish and cut out my first episode, and um I don't know, I just feel like my monologue episodes that's going to be audio only is going to kind of like center around me, and then these video, I'm gonna hopefully put this up on YouTube, and then the guest spots that are video and audio, I'm hoping to kind of like delve into the expertise of you. But that's very nice of you to say. I'll definitely have to keep that in mind and try to mix that in. So when it comes to the buying, like, I will say this in my monologue, I kind of like talked about my childhood. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because that is something that I haven't heard you talk about. You said you've been a collector like your whole life, and you've recently come back into the hobby, but like before you were I don't even have this written down. I have like some notes, but this question, like a lot of this fireside chat is going to be like just off the cuff, because I feel like my monologue is just so heavily talking points and scripted. So my question to you is: before you became the great curator, when you were little curator, the good curator, the okay curator, like, tell me about you collecting as a kid or a child.
I joke with people and I say that I've actually been collecting since I've been in the womb, before I
Mm,
was even born, before I came into this world, I was a collector. But
mm,
as far as back as I can remember, I've always collected things, It really, if I'm going to get really deep, it stems from my relationship with my mom, because my
mm,
mom collected things. Back in the day, she used to go to like antique flea markets and she would take me with her.
mm,
And as she was looking for like old antiques and stuff, I was looking for toys at that
mm,
time. And I've always taken care of my stuff. I have like my childhood GI Joes. I bagged them up in plastic bags. I took care of everything. I have a lot of my childhood toys that I have on display that have memories, etched into them. And I've always been like that ever since I can remember. And I've gone in and out of collecting as I've matured, from elementary school to high school to college. I go in and out as I try to be like an adult. I'll go to college, and I go, join a fraternity, and I do that stuff, and then I get back into collecting, and then I go out and I get a job, graduate college, I get a job, and then I go back to collecting, and then I go out and I try to, date and have relationships and start a family and things like that. But I always find myself coming back to collecting. It's just really who I am. I collect different things here and there, but the characteristics of just finding things and doing research and hunting these things down. I've always been like that, and I don't. Now I feel like now I can really embrace it, where I can justify my habit, because, like I said
mm,
before, collecting used to be just like a real waste of money. It was very irresponsible to be buying toys or comic books or whatever it is that you collect.
mhm,
It's very irresponsible because that stuff would just kind of sit, get piled up or whatever. And you don't think that it has value. But now the collectible market has evolved to the point where it is a full-blown industry. So
mm,
now, it's not ridiculous to say, this is my retirement, this is my 401k. These things
mm,
have value because they do now. And now we have, with technology the way it is, we have platforms where we can actually sell this stuff, and get
mhm.
top dollar for it or things like that. So that's kind of like how my journey has evolved. I've always been a collector my whole life, as far back as I can remember. And now I'm fully embracing it as an adult with the resources to do this.
See, now we're getting to real talk. That resonates with me. I mean, my I won't get into like my relationship with my parents, but well, not in episode 1. But that's really cool. That's really I really appreciate you being so open and sharing that. I feel like, I said this in my prologue episode about how, like, parent of immigrants, we didn't have a lot of money. They were just trying to make it in America, and like I definitely have had a lot of my qualms with like, they didn't do this for me or they didn't do that for me. But it's like they were just trying to get by. And like now, as a parent, I'm just like, man, I'm just trying to get by. It's nicer that I have maybe more disposable income than they did, and I get to have, the luxury of having a midlife crisis. But like, man, like my parents probably had midlife. My dad probably had a midlife crisis, but didn't have money to like fund his his midlife crisis. So
Can
I
we
gotta
talk about this
say,
real quick here?
yeah,
Don't mean to interrupt you, but can we talk about the difference between generations? Like
yeah,
our parents' generation, I guess they're called boomers, right? Baby
yeah,
boomer
yep,
generation.
yep,
The concept of playing and collecting toys as an adult, you don't do that. You just don't do that, right? Like, and as a kid, you might give like little toys here or there, but as you grow up, they don't expect you to continue collecting and playing with toys.
right,
It's just this new generation of millennials. We nurture our kids, we give them toys, no
hmm
problem. But back in the day, my parents, like they really didn't like the fact that I played with toys. They thought it was a waste of money. They wanted me to study and
hmm
be get good grades and grow up and be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, right? That's
hmm
what you know our culture preaches to their
yeah,
kids. So
hmm
the fact that I'm able to kind of grow up now, this is probably a reason why I collecting resonates with me so much, is because
hmm
it allows me to like go back to childhood and buy things that I couldn't get, my parents wouldn't get me at that time, or
hmm
just reconnect with maybe like a simpler time where I was really like just happy and I didn't have any cares or responsibilities.
yeah. No, that's a really good point because I forget where I heard this, but when we're kids, like universally, or maybe not universally, but I'm just talking about like as I guess the American kid experiences. We learn about dinosaurs and we love dinosaurs as kids. And like like right now, my kids love dinosaurs, but it's like as you get older, you're like dinosaurs don't mean anything, or like they just don't. You kind of are like told to like stop caring about dinosaurs, and you kind of do, and you just have to like do other things, and that's kind of sad. It's like because
You're
dinosaurs
told
are
to
pretty
grow up,
cool.
right? You're told to
You're
grow
told to
up.
grow, yeah,
Yeah.
you're told to grow up, and I think, it's yeah, you do have to become more emotionally mature, and you do have to, like, learn other things, and yeah, you do have to grow up, like, you do, but it doesn't mean that you have to be grown up all the time, I guess, and I guess when I'm looking at these cards, these silly, pieces of cardboard that we keep talking about, I do like the fact that I get to enjoy them. It is my hobby time. I'll just put on a podcast and I'll just look at my cards, and maybe someone's doing that while they're listening to us now, which is kind of meta to me.
Mhm.
Um,
I
but
think I think it's become okay. Like before, maybe 20 years ago, like if you're in a group of friends, adults, grown ass men, and you say, "Oh yeah, I collect cards," or I collect toys or comic books,
mhm,
they might kind of like look at you like kind of funny, right?
mhm,
But now it's become like accepted, kind of like how like I'll use another example, like online dating, right? It's
mm,
like is the norm now, but like 20
yeah.
years ago, it was very like hush hush, very embarrassing. But now I think we've kind of evolved to the point where we're comfortable with it. We're comfortable talking about it, and it's starting to become a little bit more mainstream.
I guess you could call it the revenge the revenge of the nerds.
Yes,
It's kind of like
yes.
cool to be nerds. I think I recently saw, what is it, like 21 Jump Street, and like the older, the narcs who are coming to the school are like, wait a minute, like it's cool to be an environmentalist, and it's cool to be nerdy and all that. And it's like the jocks were now like the second class citizens of that high school. And Channing Tatum, or whatever he went by in that movie, was just like trying to fit in by being more nerdy, and I thought that was kind of like, I guess that's, yeah, like, yes, Revenge of the Nerds. Here we go.
we're it's acceptable now, and that's what I think. That's what's so interesting about the hobby is like the hobby is a huge community of people with a common interest of collecting these things, and we accept each other for that. Although I think I hope we can get into this too. I hope some people don't accept other people in the hobby, and
Yep.
some people
Yep.
attack people, things like that. But
Yep.
that's a small minority. But for the majority of it, yes, this is a very welcoming space and community, and I think that's what appeals to a lot of people.
Gosh, I wish I could attribute it to someone specifically, but I heard the concept of the silent majority in the hobby. It's the folks who are just like, mild mannered, even keeled, who aren't like chasing this or that, or like, or like within budget, and are just like decent, reasonable people. and you don't hear a peep from them. They'll either consume content or maybe not even consume any content. They might just be happy with their collection and just like maybe post a little bit here and there on Instagram, and they're just like happy. I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes, and I'm not talking, of course, I'm not talking about you and me, but like sometimes when you're like posting things, you're just like, maybe there is a reason to like want to gain, external validation or something. And I'm not talking about you. Maybe I'm talking about myself. I don't know. I have to like definitely internalize that and process that more before I maybe I should edit this out. But I feel like yes, there is a vocal minority that I see in the comment section just trolling people, and it's like these people do kind of. I did ask you to like keep it clean, but we're not going clean anymore. We're done. I'm gonna have to keep the monologues clean, and the guests, we'll just kind of go off the rails.
All right.
Yeah, but like the trolls, they suck. I mean, straight up, like it's like bucket dippers. It's like these people who feel like they have to dip other people's buckets to, fill their own, and that's just not how bucket filling works. Like you don't dip other people's to fill your own. It's not a, mutually exclusive binary zero sum game. But I feel like sometimes people have to neg others to make themselves feel better or pump themselves up. So anyway, we're not here to talk about that, but
Can I
we're
just
down
comment
that
on that
rabbit
real
hole.
quick?
We have
Like,
to. Go ahead.
okay, so I think it's interesting that you use the term silent majority. Okay, and I think that's true. I try to look at the hobby from an outside perspective when I think of these battles that I fight. It's no secret. People see me. People. If you search my name, you'll see videos of people talking shit about me. Can I say that?
You know, one day I will learn how to bleep, but for now,
Okay.
yes. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
There's a lot of
Say whatever you
video.
want.
There's a lot of videos out there, people talking shit about me, but those videos, there may be a lot of them, they're only made by a couple people. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
the way that I look at it is the majority of the hobby are just people that go to shows, collect cards, buy, sell, trade, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe 5% people make content, right? Like if you look up hobby content on YouTube, on Instagram, it's the same people. Okay. It's you could count all of them. You could memorize all their names. It's a small group of people that actually make content consistently. Okay. And I would say like the majority of that small 5% of the hobby make positive content like myself, like
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's like 1% that are like the trolls, as you call them.
Mm-hmm.
We call they call themselves hobby watchdogs. I call them hate keepers, but they're just like 1% of the people that actually make content. And their brand, their style is to make reaction videos because that's the easiest way to kind of get followings. They're not creative enough to make content that will entertain people and make them laugh. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have collections that they post cards, things like that. They don't go to shows and make vlogs. What they do is they just sit at home and they make reaction videos and they attack people in the hobby, good people, myself, other people like that, and they try to tear them down. And that's just their brand. Because ultimately, the way that I look at it is they're just trying to gain a following. They're trying to make money, monetize people's attention. Uh, you know, Fine, they're content creators, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the path that they've chosen. But they are just a small minority of the actual minority of content creators themselves. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that there's two ways that we have to look at them. Number one is we just really have to not even give them the attention that they're so desperately craving for. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, we have to we have to make sure that they don't run around the hobby operating with impunity, making baseless accusations, encouraging, violence and hate
Mm-hmm.
within our community and things like that. So we have to find ways to combat them by overshadowing their content, pushing it down on the suggestion list, pushing back sometimes when they get out of line, but just let people know that their content is not representative of the minority. Because if we don't do that,
The
people might
majority.
watch it, and if
Yeah.
it floods the content space, they might take that as truth, where
Mm.
most of the time it's not. So
So that's I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but it's kind of wild to me because, my whole concept of my podcast is trying different things in the hobby and just kind of like sharing it out. Like Hunter S. Thompson, he would like embed himself in different groups, and I'm still trying to learn my footing in the hobby and what I like to do and what I don't like to do. And I gosh, it's crazy that we're talking about this because I really did not plan for us to go down this, but we just have to talk about it before we get to PTS. But I was thinking about a episode about watchdogging, and for me, the and I actually did look this up because I was like, am I crazy or is this true? But the actual definition of a watchdog is someone who is holding a company or a corporation or an entity accountable. I know that there are these hobby watchdogs out there and they hold people accountable, but in my opinion, a ho- a watchdog by textbook definition is someone who holds like these large entities that are not who are not human beings, who are nameless, not nameless but faceless, and are not actual like corpus people, to hold them accountable. So I kind of, watchdog is a really interesting thing because I'm not gonna lie to you and my listenership. My plan was to actually have an episode or a guest on who is or was a watchdog. But we all know that plans can change, or content can evolve and change. But it's interesting because what I want to do is humanize all various aspects of the hobby. And when I went after some companies and tried to hold them accountable, people were like, "Oh, you're a watchdog," and I'm like, "I'm not a watchdog. Like, I'm just doing this one thing one time." But I think people like to typecast. I think people like to think they see you do one thing and they're like, they have to put you in a box or a bucket. Like, you are this, you are that. And it's like, no, like, I'm a human being. I'm well rounded. I have various facets and aspects to myself. So you and I will definitely talk offline about whether watchdogging should be an episode or not, because I do value your opinion. But I want to be upfront to say, there are various people throughout the hobby, including some people who are considered watchdogs, who I've like talked to, and I've been trying to get not for nefarious purposes, but genuinely just curious, like how did why did they think the way they do? How did they do what they do? Like, how how do you create content like in that aspect? Because I didn't want to like other them either. Like, I'm really just trying to come into all of this with a genuine curiosity about why people do certain things the way they do, and not to criticize them, but to really to learn from them.
Interesting. I'll be waiting for that episode. But I will say this, just
You block me.
I think that there are some people that make great videos that are very critical about things in the hobby, whether
Mhm.
it's like a guy who's trimming cards, or a breaker that steals cards, or an
Mhm.
auction house that bids up their own auctions, things like that.
Mhm.
Those things,
Mhm.
yes, those things we need to talk about. We need to
Mhm.
bring attention to those things. But other videos where you try to like tear people down,
Yeah.
and I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about other people in the hobby,
Mhm.
where you
Mhm.
try to tear people down, you talk about their families, you try to mess with their
Ugh.
business and affect their
Yeah.
livelihood,
Right.
things like that. You make fun of them, make fun of their race, make fun of their collections, what they do, and
Right.
stuff like that. That to me really has no place. And
Mhm.
those people that call themselves watchdogs, actual watchdogs, I got no problem with. Like accounts like card porn, things like that. I think
Mm.
those are, we need stuff like that, right? We need platforms that have large reach that can bring attention to things that are not right.
Mm.
But people who call themselves watchdogs, where they make trash content in order to leverage people's attention for their own purposes of monetizing their channel, I think that's trash. I think that's garbage. Those
Got it.
people, they know who they are. The
Yeah, we
people,
don't have to name them.
yeah, they know who they are, and and I think that they're trying to hide behind that brand of being good for the hobby, but what they really are is just tearing things down. And so, I try not to give people my platform to do that. I try to push
Okay.
back as much as I can on it, and it'll be interesting to see that episode when it comes out.
Okay. Well, it's interesting when you talk about monetizing, because I mean, it's not like I've been here for, re-entry back into the hobby for many years, but I have no clue how to monetize any of this content. Like, I make it's there's no like, oh, you have 100 likes, here's $1 from Instagram. Like there's no, like, I don't monetize my content. Whether it's yet or ever at all. This really is for fun. I'm so happy that you're on this like podcast. It's weird to think that I have a podcast because before today I did not have one. So let me talk about monetizing. I gotta be a better podcast host and keep us on track. We are literally, oh my gosh, time really is flying. We're 40 minutes in. We have not
Guys, real
talked
quick
about.
here. Originally, Denny here wanted to have a 15-minute podcast. And I
Oh
said, there's
God.
no way in hell you're
No.
gonna be able to talk about anything interesting within 15 minutes. And now you see that I was right. I told you so.
Um. Yes, you did tell me so with your wise with your wisdom and your experience with doing 2-hour podcasts. Thank you very much for um reminding me because I have been a guest on a podcast where time just flies by. I'm just like, even right now, like the clock here literally says 41 minutes on the dot right now, and yet I feel like we've been just talking for like 10-15 minutes. So I get that. Um well, whoever is listening to this, I hope you're going on a really nice long walk or jog. Uh, can we do a hard pivot to the reason we're here, BTS, buying, trading, selling? Would that
Yeah.
be okay?
Yes.
I love a
Let's
conversation we've
do it.
had so far. Don't
Let's
get me
do it.
wrong.
Sure.
So when you so just to call back earlier when you're talking about getting back into the hobby and like 2019 pre-pandemic, like you're buying up toys and things that you didn't buy, you didn't have earlier in your life. Let's talk about buying, then selling, then trading. I know that's BST, but whatever. Buying. When you said you were buying all these collectibles, were you buying them online? Were you buying them in shows? Were you buying them from people from Instagram? Like, could you explain your buying streams or avenues or platforms?
Sure. Just like everybody else, for me, the gateway place to buy stuff is eBay. So originally, I just started buying tons of stuff on eBay with the intention of keeping it as a long term hold.
Mm-hmm.
But the market was so crazy at that time that you could flip things within a week, a couple weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I quickly pivoted from being an investor to being a flipper. And I was flipping cards and wax and other things like that, and it was great. I was making a ton of money in the beginning, and then doing that online, right? I kind of pivoted from selling stuff on eBay to going to shows and setting up at
Mm-hmm.
shows because it was just a lot easier to not have to deal with shipping fees and things like that. And that's kind of like where I started before I pivoted to my next stage, which will be our next segment.
Well, so yeah, you kind of bled into from buying straight into selling and flipping and all that.
Mhm.
So maybe that is a good way for us because we're already like totally behind schedule. You recently recording this on in May 2023, but last week you were at the Dallas Card Show as a dealer, right? So I wanted to kind of have this be, I mean, when it comes to the infotainment aspect, this is definitely, at least for me, has been entertaining, but for more informative purposes, maybe we do get into a little bit of nuts and bolts and like dollars, but like, um, I, mean, I guess you are allowed to talk about it because it's publicized online, I think. But like to set up as a dealer, how much does it cost? Like to rent, I think we've talked about this privately, but like to rent a showcase, like there's like these costs that people don't think about when they are setting up as a dealer, right? So,
Yes.
um, could you kind of talk us through, I guess, how the Dallas Card Show went from a sense of like, uh, however much you want to talk dollars and cents, but just paint us the word picture of being a dealer at a card show, please.
Sure. Okay. So real quick summary. The reason I wanted to become a dealer is when you walk around shows, it's tough. It's tough when you go up to tables to try to sell stuff. It's very tough. They have an advantage over you, the dealers, and they'll tenderize you. You're right. So that's why I
Mm,
did. And I wanted to sell stuff. It's very easy to go around shows and buy, but if you want to sell, you really got to be a vendor because you are at a total disadvantage at a car show, and that's primarily where the space that I operate. So I've been a vendor for like almost over 2 years now at shows, just been setting up shows across the country. Dallas is my favorite one. I've been there like the last year and a half or so, or 2 years or so, like that.
Mm,
It's considered the best card show in the country, in my opinion. So I'll just
mm.
talk about the specifics, costs behind the Dallas show, but just understand that the Dallas show is like the top show in the country. So everything
Okay,
else is
so
probably gonna be way lower
before
than
you
that.
continue, eBay not an official sponsor, Dallas Card Show not an official sponsor, and before you talk about the Dallas Card Show, I did want to say Burbank Card Show is coming up, where people are like talking about that being the potential best card show, and you're not talking about national either. But would you say currently, right now, and I don't think it's gonna be controversial or whatever, but like, are you saying that maybe from a vendor or dealer perspective, that being a dealer at the Dallas Card Show is better than being a dealer at National, for example?
No, national is its own thing. It's
Mm,
like you can't even compare anything to the national, but
okay.
the closest you can get to a card show, a national experience at a regional card show or a national card show would
Hmm.
be the Dallas Card Show, just
Got it.
because of how
Got it.
professionally it's run and the amount of people that go there and the amount of money that is spent there. It's a close comparison, but the national is it's completely different.
So when you're saying it's the best card show in the nation, you're saying it's the best card show outside of the National.
Yes.
Got
Better
it.
better
Thank you.
yeah,
I just want to
better than
clarify that.
yeah. And I've been
Okay.
around, there's some shows that I haven't been to, like Chantilly is one of them, but I've
Hmm.
been to Toronto, which is considered the national of Canada. I've been to Culture Collision, which is a huge show in Atlanta. I've been to
Hmm.
Chicago Spectacular. I've been to all
Mm,
the California shows. I've been
mm,
to Vegas shows. I've been around. So
hmm.
I've got a pretty good idea on how shows run and the different shows that are out there, and nothing really compares to the environment of Dallas.
Great. So thank you for setting that up and clarifying that. So now nuts and bolts. The floor is yours.
Sure. So when you go to Dallas, or let's just assume that Dallas is like a local show for you, right? Like you live in there, you can drive there. So when you go there, basically you got to rent a table. Table at Dallas costs $275 if you're grandfathered in, like I am. It can be as high as like 350 if you're just trying to rent it from somebody else. That's kind of like the price for that. Plus, you got to rent the cases. Cases are $50 for the entire weekend. The show goes from Thursday to Sunday. Okay, so that's pretty much the cost involved. But if you're traveling in there, you also have to factor in hotel costs, which can be
Mm-hmm.
anywhere between $500 to $800 depending on the
Mm,
rates, and then plane tickets, obviously depending when you're coming from, plus food cost,
mm.
things like that. And then that's like the main stuff. And then when you go there, you're gonna have to have money to buy stuff too, because people are selling as well as buying your stuff. So you have to have cash on hand. But that's pretty much like the basics of
Gotcha.
how to get in there.
So two offshoot questions. One being, have you ever split a table, and do you get multi-table discounts? And just like, let's talk more about these 8x3. I think Dallas is 8 foot by 3 foot, right?
8 foot table,
Yeah.
yes. Um, Traditionally, I do split the table with a buddy of mine, Brian, Sunday League investor, but he doesn't go to
Mm,
as many shows anymore. So I've kind of like evolved into having enough inventory where I take up a full table myself. You
mm,
fit four showcases, four standard size showcases on those tables. So usually I operate between 2 to 4 showcases per
mm,
table. But lately I've been kind of expanding that, but that's what usually people do. I'll touch on one point that you just mentioned. Do I split tables? A lot of people, when they do their first shows, they will
mm-hmm,
split the table. I did that too when I first
mm-hmm,
got in the game. And I quickly learned that you don't need to do that.
hmm,
So I would encourage people, if you're trying to get in the game, the only reason that you want to split a table is you want to save a little bit of cost because you want to share some risk with somebody else.
mm-hmm,
But the real estate that you're giving up is more valuable than the half of the table cost that you're saving. Okay. And
mm-hmm,
most of these tables are like under $100. At a regular show, the
mm,
table is going to be like $50, $75, something like
yeah.
that. At a bigger show, it could be up to $200. Some of the bigger shows are more than that, but most of them are like between, $200 or less. Just pay the extra money, because that real estate that you're giving up, you could put more cards there that are worth more than you're giving up in terms of cost savings. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I think that's a great point. I'm and again, you're I've asked you on here as the expert, and I'm the person who's learning. I have dealt at shows too, and I'm pretty sure that in my first chapter or my first episode talking about BTS, I'll mention my experiences there. But what about what about the concern that if you are an early, not an early, but like, your first time dealing, you might not have the inventory. So can we talk about inventory? Like, when did you know that you wanted to? I know you said like, oh, I at a certain point I knew I wanted to be a vendor because I get better deals and it's an advantage. But can you talk to me about the first time you sold? Like, how did you know? Like, when was that switch from I'm gonna be a vendor now?
Well, when the time that I was trying to set up a show, local show here in California where I live, it was just basically I was tired of getting tenderized from the buyer perspective on the other side of the table, and I applied to
Mm,
get a table at a show. And back then, it was not easy to get tables. Like
mm,
I had to like kiss ass to get
mm,
on the waiting list and get approved to get the table. And once they said, "Hey, you're in," I didn't have a choice. I just took whatever I had and I set up a table, and I split the table with my buddy. Um, and
got
I
it.
had basically two showcases worth of stuff, and I put in just whatever I had at the time. You could put graded cards in, you could put raw cards, whatever, but you just fill it
Okay.
up. Um, but that's what I had to do because the opportunity came up and I took it. So I was just kind of like thrown into the fire with the wolves or into the deep end, whatever you want to
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of being a dealer. But that first show that I set up at, it was a small show in a gym, probably like 100 tables or whatever. It
Mm.
was a noticeable difference in terms of selling cards. It's like it was so easy to sell cards compared to what I was trying to do before, where I was walking up the tables. That's when I realized, hey, this is where I want to be. I want to be on
Awesome.
this side of the table. This is how I want to sell my stuff. And I've been setting up ever since then because of that experience.
That's really cool. So you've mentioned this term a couple of times, and for the newer folks, maybe the more seasoned folks would understand what this is, and if they've watched your content, I think they would know what this is. Could you please elaborate more about that term, tenderize?
Tenderizing is a term that I use. I make up a lot of words in the hobby. It's tongue in cheek. It's supposed to be fun, but basically it just means like negotiating with somebody, just trying to get a better deal, negotiating with them, beating them down a little bit, tenderizing them so that you can get the best deal possible.
You know, um, Early on in my Denny Cards social media, I had the Denny's logo, which I never got, a cease and desist letter for. And I think you were candidly concerned about my well being with that. But I love food. I love fast casual and all that. I think I'm going to start incorporating more food terms. And I do love that you use the word tenderize. But here's the art of tenderizing. As again, like I think I know more about food than cards, but when you tenderize, you are beating it, like you said, like lightly. You're not smashing it or breaking it. You're not putting the knockout punch, the KO. For the people who are listening to this on podcast, Dan is like shadow boxing, like he is ready to really tenderize someone. Yo, well, that's the people's elbow right there. Watch out. But tenderizing is, you have to be tender. I mean, like you have to beat it down. But I guess what I'm saying is a proper negotiation is one where you can be respectful and you can assert your stance as to why something costs a certain amount or why you want it for a certain dollar amount. And I'm not here like we're not, my hope is that my content is evergreen and that people can listen to this all, whenever they want. But I should we talk about that a little bit more about how to negotiate in a tender in a tender way? Like how do you tenderize? Like are there certain phrases or tactics or tricks where you're not beating someone over the head, you're not brutally, you're not completely taking advantage of them in a deal, like, how do we tenderize?
Sure. I'll give you a summary, but I've actually made several videos about this on YouTube. So check that out, guys. Another plug for my early informational videos on how to negotiate in the hobby. Okay. But basically, it stems from this in Southern California, and I'm not even going to be uh, I'm not even going to try to be humble about this. Southern
Don't.
California has one of the best hobby markets
Why
in the
start
country,
now? Why start
in my
now?
opinion. Right?
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah.
But there's there was a period of time where there was a card show every single week. There were like multiple card shows every single week in Southern California.
Mm,
Lots of people out here, lots of young people, lots of old people in the hobby just doing transactions. And I would describe it as being around sharks. This is an
mm,
area where they back then, maybe it's chilled out a little bit, but back when I got back in the game, they would not hesitate to take advantage of you. You know what I mean? If
mm,
you had a car that was $100, they'll pay $50,
mm,
to get it from you, and they'll beat you down, thinking, they'll beat you down, and they'll take advantage
mhm.
if you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you don't know any better, then you're gonna get taken advantage of. So when I got back in the game, I really didn't like that. I didn't like people
Mhm,
that said, this is my way, this is the only way to do it. And, they quote comps and all that stuff. I
mhm.
didn't like the aggressive tactics that people were using
Yeah.
to get
Same.
deals, right?
Yeah.
Because back then it was all about money, just money, money,
Right.
money. I want to make profit, right? I don't care
Right.
about you. Very short sighted way of thinking. So I developed my own strategy based on my experience, my professional experience, my personality, where I would negotiate with people in a way where I was basically nice to them. I was
Yeah.
trying to treat them fairly. I was trying to be polite, respectful, and I find that even when you're on opposing sides and you're trying to get the best deal for yourself, if you conduct yourself in a way where you're respectful and nice to a person, then they're more willing to work with you, and you're more likely to be able to get a deal done than if you were just trying to bully them essentially or impose your will on them. So I kind of developed this strategy where when I negotiate with people, I just try to be as fair as possible. I talk to them, I explain my position, I try to understand their position, and I try to structure deals that are fair for both sides, where both people feel good about the transaction and they can walk away happy. And I cover that in a lot of my videos on YouTube. But I came up with the term tenderizing as a way to just kind of make light of that process, just to kind of make fun of it. Like, when I negotiate with you, I'm not trying to beat you down and take advantage of
Mhm.
you. I'm just tenderizing you a little bit,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm,
tenderizing you so that I can get a deal that I need to work for myself. But at the same
mhm.
time, I want you to feel good about it too.
Right. No, that's great. And I know you didn't say this phrase, but what that reminds me of is this term, which again, it's kind of like it's a food term, but that relates to the hobby is meat on the bones. And I'm sure you've bought and sold with other dealers and vendors, and so again, you didn't know these questions ahead of time. I do have my one final chat GPT question to ask near the end, but can I ask you, would you like to talk some about that term, meat on the bones, for the listenership?
Yes. So, basically, I'm assuming that when you say meat on the bones, if you're in a transaction, you want to leave a little bit of profit, a little bit of room for
Yes,
somebody else to make money on the deal.
exactly,
This is a
exactly.
common mistake I see that a lot of people make in the hobby when you're trying to wheel and deal and transact on a high level, is that a lot of people want top dollar for their cards. If their
Mhm.
card is worth $100 in their mind or based off of a comp,
Yeah,
they want $100 for it.
right.
And the thing is that if they're competing against other people that have that card, then they may not get top dollar because they have to compete against other people, and other people are looking for the best deals. Now, if
Yeah.
you have a rare one of one card that nobody else has, then yeah, you name your price. But for most people, they have cards that other people have also, so they're competing with them. So you have to get get it processed in your mind where you understand that if people are buying cards, unless they're buying it for a collection, they're most likely trying to buy it to, as an investment or to flip or make profit. So you have to understand that's their position, and you have to
Mhm.
try to structure it in a way where they can achieve that interest, where at the same time you achieve your interest of getting, making profit on your card. And that
Mhm.
that will all depend on your cost basis on the card. But a
Mhm.
lot of people ignore that fact. They ignore their cost basis. They may get a card for $1, and the card may have last sold for like $100, and they want to get $100 for it, but they
Mhm.
have the flexibility to give less in order to move that card. And a lot of people just get stubborn about that. So that's another
Mm,
thing that I talk about in a lot of my videos of just trying to learn and understand your cost basis and understanding the other person's position when you're negotiating. And if you can
mhm,
do that, you will find that it is way easier to work deals with people. Okay, people
mhm.
will be more willing to do deals with you immediately and in the future
In the
if
future.
you can take the time to understand their position and leave some meat on the bone for them, if that's what they are, if they're a flipper or reseller or something like that.
Right. No, that's really good. I really appreciate you saying that. And I know you've alluded a lot to your past videos, and I gotta say, I'm a creator now. Like, I'm just too busy. I'm sorry, I haven't watched those old videos.
I've seen your
But
content. You're not that busy.
oh, yes, it hurts because it's true. Okay, so here's the thing. I really like you talking about the rarity of cards and the one of one. Like, you mentioned the phrase one of one. And so I did want to ask you, for the newer listeners to this, not newer listeners, everyone's a new listener to this. What am I saying? People who are newer entrants to the hobby, they might see a one of one in a showcase at a local card show, right? And I hope they listen to this, because whether you talk about it or I will, if you're not, I think you will be able to. But could you explain how or why a one of one truly sometimes is not a one of one, and that it's not such a rare thing as people may think it is to newer entrants in the hobby?
Sure. The term one of one means a card that is numbered one out of one, as opposed to other numbered cards that look the same that are numbered out of 10 or 50 or 100.
Right.
It's a gimmick that the manufacturers, Topps, Panini, and all the other ones, it's
Hmm.
a gimmick that they use to add artificial rarity into their cards and make
Hmm.
people chase those cards. And thus, because they do that, it increases demand, and that's why those cards are worth more money than a card with the same picture, just maybe a different color or a different number
Hmm.
on it. Okay. That's essentially what a one of one is.
Well, I was really hoping to be sponsored by Tops and Panini. There that goes. Thank you very much for just blowing that out of the water.
Can I
But
say this though? Let me just add to this though, okay?
okay.
Because I have a lot of one-on-ones.
Mm,
One thing that I learned
humble brag there, but okay.
one thing that I learned later in the game after I spent a ton of money
Yeah. Okay.
is that um when you get into the game, the first part, when you do this and you do it on a high level where you're transacting a lot, you want to make money doing it. It's very tempting to just buy everything, right?
All right.
Just buy everything. Buy a base rookie card, buy a silver prism,
Mm,
buy a numbered out of 99 or numbered out of 50 or whatever.
mhm,
It's very tempting to just buy as much as you can, but everybody eventually always learns that to really protect your money, your investments in this hobby, and to limit the how much you are competing against other sellers or against comps on eBay and things like that, is you gotta buy rarity. That's
mm,
why the one of ones matter,
mm.
because they're rare. If you have it, you don't have to compete with everybody else, right? So that's why I from now I basically only buy exclusively very rare cards, one of ones or numbered under 10 or very low pop cards that don't transact that much, because rarity is the best way for you to protect your investments, and it's how you can stand out from all the other hundreds of dealers at every show out there that are selling the same thing. If you have the most rare things, that's what gets most attention, and that's where you can make the most money, the highest profit on your cards. Otherwise, you'll always be competing against eBay or the guy next to you that has that same card, and you don't want to play that game.
So that is that's good advice for people who want to sell and vend and flip and all that. But let's say you are a newer entrant into the hobby. Would you say that it is a rite of passage, or like a step you have to first take to get to the rarity, to buy the base or the silver or the the colors and the number cards? Or do you think that's something that you could just skip altogether and go straight to like the out of 10 gold vinyls and all that? Like, what do you think about that?
3 years ago, when base cards were worth a lot of money, $1,000 for a Luca base PSA 10 Prism, yeah, you could do that,
Mm,
or
mhm,
even a silver for that matter,
mhm,
where a card that had a pop of 500 plus, you know, PSA 10, it was okay. You could do that because they were still worth money. Now, no, I would advise
Mm,
against that because the landscape is so competitive. The market
mhm,
has been so saturated by these common lower end cards that they're
mm.
not worth the time and effort to do that.
I
But
see.
this is where I'll have to give you my best advice. Okay,
There we go.
for this
Just
for
only
you.
1 hour in,
Okay,
1 hour in, and let's get
this
to it.
is the nuggets here. This is how you get
Here we
them. You
go.
have to have them engage the entire hour. That's how it helps the algorithm.
It's
Okay, teach them. Okay,
algo. All
watch
right, here we
and
go.
learn from me.
Absorb.
Okay,
I will absorb
okay.
it. Oh.
All right. A lot of people when they get into the hobby, the first thing that they have the hardest time wrapping their mind around is the prices.
Hmm.
Oh my god, a card is worth $1,000, 10, $5,000, $10,000.
Yeah.
Most people, a card is worth like $1 to them, right? That's what
Yeah.
they have in mind. $20, maybe $100. Oh my God, this guy's
Mhm.
paying $2,300 for this PSA 10 of whatever card. They can't wrap their mind around the prices.
Yeah.
So, but they want to get in. It's fun to them. It looks sexy. They want to get in on it. So they start off low. They buy these base cards for $20, $100, a couple $100, whatever, but the margin on those things is so thin, and they
Mm,
quickly develop a risk tolerance where they start going higher, higher and higher and higher. So
mm,
the sooner you can get from point A where you're buying that low end stuff
mhm,
to point B where you're buying, you know
mm,
high end stuff where you can make really good profit on, the sooner you can close that gap, the better off you'll be. And the hardest part of
mm,
that is really just in your mind of processing spending that type of money. And I'll give you another example. Okay. You said you love food, right? If you
mhm.
really love food, right, you would have no problem paying maybe $100 for a steak, $500 for the best steak in the world, or whatever, right? If you really love food. If you don't
Mm,
value food, then you don't want to pay more than $10 for a meal, for lunch or for dinner. $10,
yeah,
$20, right?
yeah.
It's all about perception.
Uh,
As long as you can process in your mind that these cards are valuable and you understand the art of buying, selling, trading, and making a profit, then
mm,
there's no difference in the process from buying a $10 card to buying a $10,000 card. It's the same
mm,
process. It's just in your mind. Are you willing to take on that risk? Do you have the funds, the resources to do that? And the
right.
quicker you can get from that point A to point B, the more successful you'll be in the hobby.
I like that a lot. I will say I don't think I'll ever buy a $500 steak or meal, but I mean, who knows? If I sell enough cards, maybe I can. Um, I really like the idea of the point A to point B because I think the quickest way from point A to point B is a straight line, and there's that saying, as the crow flies. It's almost like if you fly over buildings, you can get to from one place to another. But when you go through streets or roads, pedestrian walkways, driving, you have to go around structures. And I feel like sometimes, yeah, some of these roadblocks or structures can be artificially placed, and some of them are stuff that we do to ourselves. And maybe in the year 2023, again, I'm trying to be evergreen content, and who knows how much of this will hold up, but maybe there is a strong, good argument for skip these unnecessary steps along the way. Now, I say that in a crazy way because the whole premise of my podcast is stop and smell the roses, try these different things out. But when it comes to the buying, selling, and trading, I mean, BTS, the buying, trading, selling, maybe there are certain things that you don't have to vend or flip or navigate so that you can get to your final destination quicker. Well, not final destination, but I think what I'm saying is I get your points and I really do like your insight. And
It-
maybe I will stop buying
yeah.
junk.
Let me add to that too. Not to say that it's wrong to buy a $1 card. It just depends on what level you want to be on in the game. If you
Hmm.
want to just collect for fun, that
Right.
stuff is entry level product. That
Yes.
stuff, that's retail product that you buy at
Right.
Target, right?
Right.
And it's meant for that. It's not meant for you to make money and start a business and quit your day job to do that.
That is
To
true.
get to that next level, you got to start buying the higher end stuff, right? So
Yes.
you can't think that you're going to set up. For example, we'll go back to the Dallas Card Show. You think you can't think that you're going to set up at the Dallas Card Show, spend money on the table, the cases, the hotel, and all that other stuff.
Mhm.
If you're going to be flipping, cards that are like $100, it's just
Mm.
not feasible. You
Mm.
won't be able to turn the cards quick enough to do that. So it depends. If you want to be a dealer, then you've got to have inventory where it's going to be worth your time and the overhead cost. If you want to start a side business, then you've got to be on a level where you're making enough money to support your lifestyle. You know,
Right.
if you want to quit your day job, it's even higher than that. If you don't
Right.
want to do any of that stuff, if you just want to be a collector and enjoy the
Yeah.
hobby, then yeah, you could buy, 10-cent cards and just still have
Right.
enough time. But everybody wants to be everybody has this conception. They watch YouTube videos, they watch all these guys on the vlogs that are flippers. They want to
Mhm.
be that guy. They want to be out there doing $1,000 transactions. But if you don't have the right mindset to do that,
Yeah.
you're going to get yourself in trouble. You know what I mean? You're going to
Right.
buy a bunch of stuff that loses value, or you can't move, and you're going to become disenchanted, and you're going to start pointing fingers at people saying
That's
that
what
they
people do.
misled you. And
Right.
so I just try to tell people, look, the best way to kind of get started if you want to be in this game, buying, selling, trading, is you've got to do the research, watch, and restrain yourself from spending a lot of money on things that won't get you the return until
Yeah.
until you truly understand the process, and you're ready to put in the work.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job of setting this conversation up because yes, that is the big disclaimer is with buying, trading, and selling. Right now, we're talking about selling. Your expertise is being a vendor and dealer in real life, local card shows and regional card shows. And so I know personally as a dealer, like as someone who has dealt, I don't put in my showcases cards that I collect and I love. Like I'm not putting my Jordan cards out there. I'm putting cards that I want to sell or move in my showcases. I know there's definitely arguments to be made to put in some of your nicer pieces as showstoppers or people to kind of like, window shop and go, "Ooh, look at that." And, how much is that? And, it's not for sale or a really high dollar amount. But yes, this whole part that we've been talking about really is if you want to sell to make profit, like don't buy base and silvers if you don't have to. If you're looking to eventually flip, again, just being a short term definition of selling, and investing is just a longer term, and eventually you may sell that off. So thank you for that insight. I really do appreciate it. Now I meant to ask earlier, you mentioned pop and the seasoned veterans, the intermediates, the people who are considered intermediate learners. I don't know. People who have been here for a while, they'll know what pop is. But for the newer listeners, God, I said it, newer listeners again, the newer entrants into the hobby, could you please explain what pop count or pop is?
Yes, POP just is short for population of the card. The companies that grade the card, PSA, SGC, BGS, and whatever other company, CSG,
Hmm.
they keep census reports on the number of cards that they grade and what grades they are. So
Hmm.
the lower the population report on a card, the more rare it is. So for example, like a PSA 10, Nike promo card of Jordan, for example, is a pop
Hmm.
170 for PSA
Mm,
10. I know I have that card. So that means
mm.
there's only
Humble brag again.
170
Okay.
of those cards that are graded currently in the world.
Hmm.
So that makes it relatively rare compared to the PSA 9, which there may be like a 900 of them out
Mm.
there. And again, going back to my earlier point, you want to buy rarity because you don't want to
Hmm.
compete with other people. If you
Mm.
buy a card, I'll give you another example. I used to, one of my biggest mistakes is I invested heavily in Kobe Bryant 1996 Topps paper cards, PSA 9s.
Oh, that's what I
Invested
have.
heavily,
Oh.
spent like 13 grand on like 13 of them
Uh,
or whatever, something like that. And I thought to myself, it's Kobe Bryant. Everybody
yeah.
wants a Kobe Bryant rookie card. At the time,
Yeah.
the pop count was 10,000. And I thought to
Yeah.
myself, there's at least 10,000 people out there that would pay for this card, right?
Hmm.
And then the pop count kept growing to like 13. Now I think it's like a 15,000 or something like maybe even more. And even then, I would think there's at least 15,000 Kobe Bryant rookie collectors out there, right? That would want that card, of course, right?
Hmm.
And maybe there are, but the problem is when there's so many out there, they transact more very heavily. And because they transact, that sets the market value. So when I bought into those cards, they were like $1,000 a piece. Now they're like, I didn't even look. They're probably like $100 each or something, like $300 for a PSA 9 or something like that, probably lower. I see you looking around. You probably have some.
I feel terrible right
Yes.
now.
And that was probably my biggest loss because they just transacted too much. And Kobe Bryant is one of them. Zion Prisms are another. Luca Prisms, all those guys, all that high pop stuff. Basically, if the
Mm,
pop is like over 100,
mm,
it's or if it's close to the PSA 9 pop, whatever that is,
mhm.
then that's too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, and but the the additional thing I want to say to that is I have some cards that I either created myself or I purchased where it's like literally a pop one, the only one that was graded by PSA and is a PSA 10. And what I realize is it's because it's a such a such a bad card that no one in their right mind, except for this one person, whether it was me being crazy, myself, or another crazy person, decided to submit that card in for grading and get a grade back. So I do want to just add to what you said, and with a caveat that just because, let's say you have a dealer who shows you the pop report, pulls out the PSA or the BGS app, and says, "Look at this, it's a pop one. It's such a rare card." Pop reports very valid point about how for the really nice cards the higher you go up in the grade you can have like the thinner the air comes and the lower the pop report pop count is. But I gotta say I do have some pop 1, 2, and 3 cards of PSA 10 where no one in the right mind would have graded that. So, and I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
going to say specifics because I'm too
just
embarrassed.
just to address that point, yes, some cards, if you see that at the pop one and they're old cards,
Hmm.
like 10 years old, it's probably because
Yeah.
nobody wanted to grade it. You're right. Okay. And this is, but like you have the only one out there that's a PSA 10. So if somebody wants it, they got to pay your price to get it. But this is a trick that I use, a strategy that I use to determine whether that would be fair or not. Is
Hmm.
basically you just look online to see if you can find the raw version of that card,
Yep.
and see how much it is. If,
Yeah.
if the raw version is like $5 or less,
Hmm.
then it's worth you taking the risk to buy it, a really good copy,
Hmm.
pay $15, $20 or whatever it is to grade it. Maybe you get
Yeah.
a PSA 10 too.
Yeah.
If the raw cards are several $100s, okay, and you don't want to take that risk, and the card that person has is just a little bit higher than that, sometimes it's worth paying just to get the grade that you're going to get versus the risk of getting like a 9 or some other grade.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. I just realized as my first guest, I'm just letting this conversation go wherever we want. But I did plan on having a future episode with an expert in the grading, like a group subber or something. But I love that we're talking about this. I mean, you do have a lot of expertise in a lot of these areas. I think I just have to have you on another time. I cannot believe we are 77 minutes into this. It's an hour more than I said I was going to give you. So I could talk to you clearly for 2 hours, but in the interest of the time and viewership and maybe leaving some meat on the bones for you next time to come, I think I'm going to try and wrap it up and briefly talk about trade night and then give you the chat GPT question and we can call it. Um, Trade night. I think you and I have talked about this. I went to my first trade night and I was overwhelmed because I thought it was literally just trading. And I I think it's a misnomer. I haven't been to many trade nights. I've been to, like a couple, and I've done some. People like to call them online trade nights, or people like to trade on, Instagram and online. But could you tell me, please, your experience with what you have done with trade night?
Sure. So trade nights are they're not they're not an old thing. They have not always been around.
Hmm.
They usually, trade nights are pretty much a new concept for card shows. That's why a lot of card shows don't have really good trade nights. Okay, in
Mm,
comparison to what I would say Dallas. Dallas has probably the best trade nights because it's basically like another card show that goes way into the AM real late. But basically, trade nights, like you said, it's not just trading anymore. It's just another place for you to transact with cards. But the thing that's unique about trade nights is that you don't have that disadvantage of being a dealer and a person walking around. There's no
Mm,
tables. You take the
mm,
table away, suddenly you're on an even playing ground with everybody else there,
mhm,
and it changes the dynamic of how you do deals. But with that said, I would say some of the best deals that I've ever done have been at trade night because
mm,
there is not that table there in front of you. The only difference is you have to hustle more. There's
mm.
probably less people there, less foot traffic, but you can get really, really good deals at trade night that you couldn't get normally at a show.
Okay. So again, I guess we're going back to this physical and figurative concept of tables and the power of the tables. Maybe that's like something I could talk about later or make content around the power of the table. But though the first trade night I went to was kind of like table set up where people could sit. And I guess you could kind of like sit on either side, but basically it was first come, first serve. So the reason there is equality between people in trade night is there's no table fees, but at least for the ones that I've been to, there are actual tables, and whoever gets through the door first gets to sit and set up almost like, like a free
Hmm.
table. Like, I don't think there's gonna be renting of showcases and like elaborate setups and like, I think some people do try to move sealed wax in trade nights, but in
Let me just tell
general,
you real quick at the
yeah.
Dallas Card Show, it's like another card show at night. Some people bring out their display cases and put it there. I at the last Dallas Card Show, I'm not joking. I'll send you a picture. A
Hmm.
dude was so desperate to set up that he made a table out of cardboard and he set up and he killed it. I know the guy.
Wow.
He killed it. So it gets crazy now, the way that these trade nights have
So,
evolved.
so, so there are tables though. So you do agree or admit that in Dallas Card Show Trade Night there are tables and chairs. So it's not like hotel
Yes.
ballrooms where I mean I've seen pictures of National like last year and the year before where people are literally just like on this dusty carpet, just like dirty, grimy. People are just like, leaning against the walls in the lobbies of hotels and doing trades that way.
Yeah,
But
we don't
like,
care. We don't care. We just want to do the deal. It doesn't matter if it's in a parking lot. If there's a trade night going on and if people
yeah,
are wheeling and dealing, we don't care. We'll
okay.
do it.
But so people that so it's free, right? That's the big thing. Usually there's pizza, like just like someone chips in and gives free pizza out to people, if they're sponsoring it. There's buy so people. Would you agree? One of the big tips for trade night, even though it's trading, is bring cash, right?
Yes, cash is king.
Cash is king. Um, what else? So people bring there's I mean, dealers can be in trade night, the public can be in trade night. So people just bring their stuff, right? Just people and people are just there to transact, whether it's with money or their raw cards or slapped cards, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Everything's fair game at trade night. There are tables. Literally, there are tables there, but there is no distinction between a vendor or
Mm-hmm.
a person that's just attending the show. Everybody's on an equal playing ground.
Mm,
So you can sit at anybody's table, you can talk to anybody that you want there
mm-hmm.
and just try to work a deal.
Gotcha. All right. So I said I would be brief on trading. It is the kind of like the sometimes an afterthought of the BTS buying, trading, selling. But in the interest of time, I am going to move on to the final question I have for you, and then we can do a little mini wrap up, which will probably take 30 minutes. Are you ready? And I think I did share this with you beforehand. Um, well, you are ready. I don't know where else you're going to go. Okay.
I'm always ready. I was born
I
ready.
you were born you were born in the womb. You were collecting in the womb.
That's right.
You're
That's right.
collecting
I'm
amniotic
always
fluid.
ready to talk hobby, to give advice, to talk
Yeah,
shit about people.
they're it's like multifaceted. It's
Yes.
you're
That's,
you are
I
yeah.
am the hardest working man in the hobby, as they like to say.
You know, I gotta address that. I mean, no one takes nicknames that you create for yourself seriously. I would never do that as Hobby S Thompson. Like Denny Cards, like I would never create a nickname for myself, So um yeah. Okay. So here we go.
But you just did though.
Well, you're not. I'm the host. I'm the host. You can't call me out. Can't call me out. All right.
Oh, all right.
I plugged in your name into Chat GPT. I'm not trying to neg you.
Okay. I
Maybe I
do have a
am.
common name though.
They 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 didn't know who you are. They said great curator. What is that? That's
Well,
this that.
you know, Hobby Chat GPT or whatever it is. It's not up to date. It does not search the internet. It has a baseline of knowledge
uh,
that it has, but it's not like current internet stuff.
well, when the robots and computers come to take over mankind, they're gonna come after you first for saying that. They're insulted. Um, you know what? There should be something called like Hobby GPT. How awesome would that be? You just put in hobby related content questions. Okay. Oh my gosh, let me get to it. All right. Can you share a memorable experience or defining moment that has shaped your journey in buying, selling, and trading sports and pop culture cards? This question allows your guest to reflect on a specific experience or moment that had a significant impact on their personal or professional growth. It provides an opportunity for storytelling, insight into their expertise, and allows listeners to connect with their journey. It can lead to fascinating anecdotes, lessons learned, and inspiring narratives that resonate with your audience. That's the question.
Sure. Okay. Can I? Am I limited to one? Can I give like two, maybe three?
I literally gave you this question ahead of time. Literally. It's the one thing. Okay, you know what? Yes, please. You are the guest. I should be more accommodating. I'm like host of this house and podcast. Yes, the great curator. You can give me as many as you'd like.
Okay, I'm going to give you three examples. Okay, that
Three.
I'm going to cover a spectrum here.
Okay, here we go.
Maybe four. Okay, so
Really
in the
pushing it
beginning,
there.
when I was setting up at card shows, I was making $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000 each
Humble
show,
brag again.
whatever.
Okay. Yep.
And it was cool, but then I started to ask myself if this is worth my time. Is it worth my time and effort to do this, to make a couple $1,000 to sit there for 6 hours or whatever it is, make a
Mm-hmm.
couple $1,000? And I wasn't sure if my inventory was like the right inventory that I was buying that people wanted. But
Mm-hmm.
what really kind of set me on this path where I fell in love with being a vendor at shows
Mm-hmm.
is I was set up at this Las Vegas card show that was inside a mall. This is
Mm-hmm.
early in my vendor career, and it was a terrible card show, terrible experience. I will never go to a card show in a mall. It's very like bush league. They put me like underneath this window. I had the sun beating down on me and my cards for like 5 hours. I was pissed, and it was like the worst. I didn't sell. I barely sold a couple $100 worth because there was like no foot traffic. And then towards the end of the show, like the last like hour of the show, this dude comes in, looks at my showcase, picks like eight of my highest end cards and buys everything from me. Barely any negotiation at all. Pays me like $24,000 cash. He puts it on the table, stacks of hundreds bills and $2,000, rubber bands. And I could not believe it. It's the most cash I've ever seen before in hand, most money I've ever sold anything for. And I
And
took
it was
that money.
fake.
I spent it all already, so who knows?
Okay.
But
So okay.
I took that
Took that
money and
money.
I was like, I ran afterwards. I packed up my case and I left out because I was so scared that I had all this cash. Right,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get robbed or something.
Totally.
And I was after I packed up all my stuff and I was driving home and I was eating dinner. I was like reflecting. I was like, wow, I can do this.
Mm.
I can be a vendor, and if I have the right cards and I know how to make deals, I can make money doing this, right? And that set me on a path where I created like this small business of buying, selling, trading cards. So that was a really cool experience, and that kind of led me to understand that no matter how bad a card show can be, all it really takes is one good deal to make the whole
Mm.
day for you, make the whole month, or whatever it is. So that kind of gave me that perspective on what it's like to be a dealer.
That was really nice for Jeff Wilson to do, by the way. That's just such a
No, it was just
heartwarming
some dude.
story.
I've never seen him ever again. Never seen this
Man.
guy. ever again. And I've been to a couple other Vegas shows, just never seen him in it. But if you're watching this, thank you.
He's not. There's no
Yeah,
way. Yeah.
he set in motion who I am today, to be honest, from that
What an
experience.
origin story.
Yeah, of me being a
So
vendor, anyways. Of
if
me
people
being a
don't like
vendor.
you, they can blame that person.
This
Then
is even before content. This is before I made content at all. So
wow.
this is nobody knew who I was. I was just like some dude.
You're
But
the good
he
curator.
set me on that path.
Okay.
Then
Number two.
when I was buying cards, I was, like I said, we were talking before, I was buying like common cards, sports cards, things like this, just chasing money, just chasing profit.
Mm.
You know, I see a trend going for like John Morant cards. Okay, go buy John Morant cards. Go buy, you know, whatever it is, this prospect, these guys, right?
Yeah.
Then I met some guy that lives in my area. He goes by Ultimate Pastime. His name is Mark, Ultimate Pastime. Hobby OG. Been here for like 30, 40 years.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
He has this phrase, which I've kind of appropriated from him. He has this phrase as buy what you like. Buy what you like. And I've had many conversations with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, brief but heart-to-heart conversations where he's like, this is a hobby, dude. You know, we have this crazy cycle right now. We have a lot of hype, but if you just stick to buying things that you like, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. And those words resonated with me a lot, to where I kind of shifted my strategy from chasing profit, chasing what everybody else was chasing and just trying to keep up and not get left behind, to actually buying things that I enjoy. And that's when you started seeing me buy like Marvel cards, Star Wars cards, you know, other things that I enjoy. And all this stuff that I have here is a result of him setting me on that path. And that's when I really shifted away from sports cards into pop culture cards, because that's where I feel most comfortable. So I attribute a lot of what I am, of my collection and my inventory and how I've evolved as a buyer to my interactions with Mark.
Wow. Okay. That's
then,
really nice. Okay.
Yes. And then as a content creator, there's two stories I'll share with you. One story is, you know, like we talked about earlier, how a small minority of idiots out there make videos about me and they troll me, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, when they did that, my natural instinct as a person was to fight back. And I would engage with these fools, and I would make memes about them. I would get them real good. They get real pissed off. And I would get into this habit of just like sniping at them and stuff like that. And one day I was making this meme, and I spent like 35 minutes making this meme, editing it and all that stuff. And I was like, haha, I'm going to get them. And I just realized, like, damn, I just wasted like half an hour fighting with this guy who I don't know at all on the other side of the country or something like that. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And it gave me the perspective that like the hobby is not about that. It's not about attacking people. It's not about getting wrapped up in these online beasts with people that don't know, that you'll never meet. It's about positive interactions like what I'm having with you, buying, selling, trading, making profit, having fun. It's not about getting in fights and over stupid stuff, you know, hobby stuff. So that gave me a perspective. So that's why I kind of pivoted from my position where I would make fun of people, attack people, to where I just try to be more positive and try to set a good example. But don't get me wrong, I got a lot of jokes and I'm locked and loaded. And sometimes I will take shots at people if they step over the line. But for the most part, I try to restrain myself because I feel like I don't want to lower myself to their level. And then my last example that I'll tell you, which is what really put me over the top, is I went to the Toronto Sports Card Expo last year, and it was not a great experience for me from in the terms of being a dealer there. It was just very difficult to sell cards. It's a totally different environment being out in Canada. But the highlight of the show for me was this little kid. His name's Mason, a little Asian kid. Came up to me, and he was like 10 years old, and he knew who I was. He watched all my content. He came with his mom, and his mom told me, yeah, he loves you. He watches all your stuff. And he was so excited to meet me. And I was like, what? This little kid watches my stuff on YouTube and Instagram? And he's like, yeah. And, you know, and I started collecting Star Wars cards because of you. And, you know, he just, you know, he's like, he just loved me. He looked up to me, you know? And I felt like I instantly felt a connection with him, like like this is like my little brother or something, you know, a little nephew.
Mm,
And I gave
mm,
him a Star Wars card for free. Wasn't worth that
mhm.
much, but
Yeah, base.
he thought it was like you thought I would give him a 1 of 1 super fractor or something. He was so excited.
Wow.
And it was like a 3-day show, and he came back every single day, talked to me like for like 10-15 minutes until his mom dragged him away. And I still keep in contact with him from time to time. I watch his content. He starts making content now. I've sent him
Mm.
gifts for Christmas, things like that. But
Oh my
that
gosh.
interaction with him kind of told me, okay, I need to make sure that I set a positive example for people. I don't know who's watching me. Little kids are probably watching me. So I want to make sure that my content is fun, entertaining, engaging. And I set the example of the type of people that I want to come into this hobby. If little kids are watching this
Mhm.
and they're learning from my mannerisms and the things that I do, I want them I want to set a good example for them. So that's why I try to like create content that's kind of like fun, lighthearted, somewhat educational, but I try to set a positive example instead of like lowering myself in the gutter with all the trash and getting in these stupid beefs. I try not to do that because I don't want people to see that and think that that's the norm.
Well, that was really not cool for Jeff Wilson to do that after buying all your cards, just trolling you. But you guys are good friends now, I guess, so that's good. But yeah, no, I gotta say that's a side of you that people don't know. Again, it's like I was like, like I think we're all somebody, but some of us are hobby nobodies or whatever. But like, I didn't have anything, and we just talked, and you gave me your time, and that was really nice of you. Um, I wait. Let me ask you: did you sign that card for the kid, or or did he like?
The
Did you
card
like?
I gave, no, I gave him a Star Wars card.
Yeah, but like, did you just like slap a sticker auto on it with your initials?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
But
you should have that
I
ready.
he did take a couple pictures with me. I did charge his mom for that though. But
That's good. No,
yeah,
capitalism, baby.
I had to make
No,
it was a slow show. You know,
yeah, slow show. It's
yeah,
Toronto. I mean,
$5.
it's your
It's nothing.
Canadian money. I don't even know
Yeah,
how that
it's five
conversion
Canadian
works.
dollars. It's like 430 US. You know.
Wow, that's
One
so.
thing, can I comment on that real thing?
Go ahead.
You keep mentoring.
Mentioning.
I can't. We're going on too long. I'm like stuttering
Yeah,
now.
no, I am
You
so
keep
tired. It
mentioning.
is
Yeah,
literally 12:46
yeah.
right now. I am. I you
Don't you have
we
to
s-
work?
we
Don't you have to go
let's
to
not talk
work?
about that. No, I
Okay.
mean,
All right.
well, I'm gonna
You
get
keep
sick from
mentioning
this. So yeah,
how you reached out to me in the beginning and I
yeah,
talked to you. Okay.
yeah,
First of
yeah.
all, I thought you were just like some guy trying to scam me in the beginning. Okay. Because you wanted to, like, you said you were in California, you wanted to meet me. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? You're like, hey,
Yes.
you're like, we have a connection. I'm Asian too. Come on,
Oh, I get
And
okay.
I was like,
Edit this out.
okay, this guy's a weirdo.
Okay.
But
Yeah. No, sure.
I checked you out a little bit. I was like, all right, he's just really out there, and he just wants to get to know me. And but the reason like you said, I gave up my time to talk to
Yeah.
you was because I try to help people as much as I can. If you're
Yeah.
coming to me
Yeah.
and you're not trying to take advantage of me. You're not trying to get me to buy your stuff or whatever, but you just
Hmm.
want to ask me questions or you want to get to know me or you appreciate the content that I'm putting out and that you're
Yeah.
consuming. I will talk to you. I
Yeah.
respond to almost all my DMs
Mm.
out there. I respond to almost all the comments on my YouTube and everything like that. Everybody that
Hmm.
I meet, I try to have a positive interaction with them because if they're supporting me somehow by following me, watching my content, then I want to make sure that
Yeah.
I'm there as a resource to the best of my ability for them. And sometimes that's just a brief conversation. Sometimes that conversation develops into a friendship, like me and you,
Yeah.
or sometimes it doesn't. But I always try to
Right.
make myself available at the best I can because I think that that's what the hobby is about. We all need to try to help people. It's in my early mission statements on all my videos where I talk about setting a very high standard of conduct, high level of civility within the hobby that we hold
Hmm.
each other accountable to. And
Yeah.
if I can do this to people, then I hope that they will also do that and set that high standard for the next person. So that's kind of like why I did that. And look, it's developed into a friendship. We talk to each other, we text. I'm doing this show for you. I'm
Yeah.
seeing you grow, and hopefully, it's really my sincere intention that you will continue to be consistent with your content, and you will grow, and you'll be an example for other people out there, and they'll follow you. And we have more stuff like this versus, trash content that's trying to tear people down.
Yeah,
We don't need any more of that. We need more long form discussions, positive engagement,
this is
and
long.
friendships.
Yeah. Well, I'm really sorry to break the news to you, but this whole time we've been talking, it's been a long con. I've been meaning to get a hold of you to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. Um,
I don't even have a car.
Whoa, breaking news. That's gonna go in the show notes, I
Yeah,
think. How do you oh God, it's just so late. It's like 12:50. How do you not have a car in California?
we have
That
a
is
car.
car country.
I work well. We have a family car, but I work primarily from home. So I just gave it up,
All
lower my
right.
carbon footprint, and there I am.
Okay. I see. I'm so tired. I can't even make a joke about that. I want to say, like, in all sincerity, I did joke to you before the show, saying, "Hey, I think I can turn your villain edit into a, go from a heel to a face." Um,
I like being a
there.
heel, though.
I know
I
you
like
see, you
pissing
said
people
that.
off.
You are genuinely a good dude in the hobby, and I hope people get to listen. There's who the heck is listening this far into this? They must be like on the longest run or must
You're
have the
gonna have to
worst
cut it up.
traffic.
Cut it up in digestible
I don't want
segments.
to. I don't want to edit.
Okay.
Ugh. Okay, I'll talk about. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
You help me out, or I'll pay you to edit or whatever it is. Here's the thing.
Use a Chat GPT to do it for you. They have
Thank.
AI programs for that.
All right. Thank you.
Opus.
I
Opus.
want to say in closing, I just want to say you, much as people may see you, and I think people just don't get the joke, the inside joke. I think there's a big part of you where it's things are done tongue in cheek, but some people just take it way too seriously or way too literally, and it's almost like they don't have the humoristic intelligence. See that's probably really bad, but I don't even
Okay.
know how to explain it. But they're
Okay.
just not. They're not. They don't have the social cues to understand what a joke is. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
don't know if there's a condition for that, but some people, I joke when I say I'm the hardest working man in the hobby, even though I probably spend a lot of time in the hobby. Okay, but it's clearly a joke, and some people take it
yeah,
seriously,
I know.
where they'll make posts. This fool thinks he's the hardest working man in the hobby. This fool, thinks he works harder than me or whatever.
Mhm.
There's some people that take that literally, and I used to think it was so stupid. But now I think that it's actually a condition, because I was
Mm,
at a WrestleCon, a wrestling
mhm.
convention set up as a
Yeah,
vendor,
yeah.
and there's this guy cosplaying as Hulk Hogan. He's probably
Mm,
about 5'6", skinny, but he's dressed up in Hulk Hogan gear and walking
mhm.
around. And I was jokingly, because I was on camera, I was jokingly said, "Oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan!" Right? And this guy right next to me is like, "That's not Hulk Hogan." And I'm like, "It's
Wow.
Hulk Hogan." He's like, "Are you stupid? It's not Hulk Hogan." And then that's when it clicked in my head that, oh shit, there's like guys out there that don't understand
Mm,
sarcasm. There
right.
must be a condition for it. I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to make fun of these people, but
Yeah.
I realize that there are some people that take everything literally,
Mhm.
and that's how they react. So
Yeah.
I'm more kind of like lenient on some people when I see things like that. I'm more, if they have that type of condition where they just don't understand sarcasm.
I will refrain from making a joke about that as well. I will focus on the wonderful positivity that you do exude, and I am just so tired. Why did you make me wait this late? Oh, talent. These people who think they're just so but you are on the West Coast. Okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna wrap this up. You know what? I just realized I'll just make this into a two-parter. I'll have like a first part. I'll put that as a podcast, and then do the second one just to give people a little bit of a breather. I did say in my show notes, if you ever need to take a break, let's take a break. We didn't do that. We just powered through. I cannot believe that this is an hour and 45 minutes. Dan, the great curator, you are a positive force for good in the hobby. I can resoundingly say that. There are people who just don't get it. I am here to really learn from folks like you. And you're only my first guest. And I hope that my future guests are equally as entertaining and informative, the infotainment, if you will. But they're going to have really big shoes to fill in that regard, I think, because you're an excellent, excellent first guest. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your knowledge. I can't even end this with sarcasm. Like I said, I'm just way too tired. So thank you again. And after I press end record, you will tell me what to do with this so I can push it out to the platforms.
Yes, yes. I am the executive producer of this show now.
You are the captain now.
Yes. Thank you for
All
having me, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
right. You're doing my sign off now? Oh my gosh. All right. Bye.